sick, or infirm. Thank you for those who serve overseas and protect our freedoms. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of our June 2nd meeting? We have a motion and a second. Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
Thank you. You all will notice you have a letter on your desk about a special budget and finance work session tomorrow afternoon on the operating, I believe it's tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock on the operating budget. First on our agenda is RS 2015-1499, authorizes the issuance, sale, and payment of general obligation improvement bonds in an amount not to exceed $400 million and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of debt service on the bonds. Councilmember Pridemore.
Budget and Finance Committee, I'm going by recollection. I believe it's not on my agenda. It's 13-4-0 against. And I move in from Budget and Finance for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Dominy.
Vice Mayor, this is the capital spending plan resolution?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I looked the wrong number.
Nope, we're at 499. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're going to move RS 2015-1500 to the heel of the agenda and consider all the amendments at that time. Next, we're at bills on third reading. BL 2015-1130 approves agreements between Metro Government, Nashville Electric Power Service, the U.S. Marshals Service, Belmont University, and the Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority for access to Metro's emergency radio dispatching and response system. Councilmember Pridemore.
With all committees voting for approval, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1131 approves a relocation agreement for space on poles as permitted by third parties to relocate that equipment as needed to accommodate Google Fiber's construction or placement of its fiber optic cables. Councilmember Pridemore.
With all committees approving, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1132 authorizes the Director of Public Property Administration to execute 2 quitclaim deeds conveying 2 parcels of property located on Finland Street and Hopedale Drive to Google Fiber, Inc. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All the reports in. I move approval with a comment, please.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember Langster.
I hope if anyone else in this council has an opportunity to work with the person that was running this bill, I hope you get a better response than I did. With that, Vice Mayor, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1133 approves a construction agreement with CSX Transportation, Inc. for installation and maintenance of a preemption interconnection device at the Railroad Guard crossing of 20th Avenue North and Charlotte Avenue. Councilmember Pridemore.
I move for approval with all committees approving the bill.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1134 abandons easement rights in a portion of alley number 12 for properties located at 200, 206, 216, 222 2nd Avenue South, and at 209 and 217 1st Avenue South. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1135 abandons portions of Woodfolk Avenue, alley number 1089, and an unnumbered alley right-of-way. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All committees in, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1136 abandons a portion of an unnumbered alley right-of-way and easement. Councilmember Langster.
With all committee reports in, I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1141 authorizes Nashville Urban Venture LLC to install, construct, and maintain an underground encroachment within the public sidewalk of 11th Avenue South. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2015-1142 adopts, well, we'll go, I guess we'll do the other one first. No.
1142, we'll get need a motion and a second.
Okay. Adopts the capital improvements budget for fiscal year 2015-16. Councilmember Pridemore.
Committee reports.
Sorry. Councilmember Hunt.
I don't have my, what amendment, 1142, planning and zoning to vote 940 against.
Councilmember Pridemore.
Budget and Finance voted as amended 13-4-0 against. And I move approval and have for the amendments for discussion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second, and we will start with the amendments. Amendment number 1. Deletes the plan to design, construct of a flood containment wall, pumping station, and all the other things associated with controlled mitigation of flood in the downtown area. Councilmember Claiborne.
Yes, Vice Mayor, I would move for approval with comments.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We had an extensive conversation here during the previous combined committee meetings that some of the council members were not here during that period of time. But that probably took up a major part of the discussion as we started out. And one of the things, in addition to what has been previously said, is raise the question about potential federal funding for a project such as this. This was never mentioned to us in the presentation that Mr. Potter gave. This has never been brought forward to us at any point in time. But since we were here last, I've did some investigation and contact with individual from the Corps of Engineers and found out that according to the 2013 Water Resources Development Act, Chapters 2 and Chapters 3 of that particular document deal with cost sharing of flood reduction projects that are potentially open for 50-50 funding, 50% federal funding, 50% state and or local funding. In asking questions of the Water Department during that discussion, it was determined that no one has actually talked to one of our U.S. senators, either Senator Corker or Senator Alexander. Members of their office have attended meetings, but when you're talking about spending $100 million, it would seem to me that somebody from the government would go to the person who is the most able to give a decision about whether that's possible or not. Mr. Riebling was asked if that was true, and he indicated that there was a possibility for federal funding. He tried to downplay that and say it was a remote possibility, yet it still did exist. We had a Corps of Engineers representative here who said that as far as he knew of today, that permits for this project have not been given at this point in time. Mr. Snyder reported on the United Flood Mitigation Plan that the Water Department has brought forward and talked about the various areas across the county that are still going through feasibility studies that are going to take into 2016, 2017 to be completed. And as far as I heard, that has not been done with this particular project. So we're being asked to appropriate $100 million for a flood wall that has not met all the benchmarks yet, and all the possibilities for funding from other sources, especially the federal level, has not even been pursued. Nobody's had that conversation. So whether a flood wall is appropriate for downtown Nashville or not, it's not appropriate at this time because all of the homework has not been done here. And so I'm asking you to support me in pulling the funding for this, pushing it forward to the next administration and to the next council. And if this is a good project now, it'll be a good project in 2 months from now. And let the individuals who are actually going to be involved in going forward with how Metro dollars are spent, let them make the decision. It's inappropriate for us to come in here right at the very tail end of a council term and be forced forward to make a decision about spending this much money for a project that apparently has then not been properly vetted out. So I'm asking for your support in pulling this funding tonight.
Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Members of the council, I don't want to brag or tell personal stories, but I will tell you that in the 2010 flood, I spent all night out in Pennington Bend helping people get out of the disaster. I spent the next 3 years of my life litigating with the Corps of Engineers over what caused the 2010 flood. This is something that is very personal to me, and I have spent a lot of time studying this. And there were significant parts of Nashville that flooded on Saturday, May the 1st. But if you look at downtown, and downtown may have had some flooding, but the bulk of the flooding downtown on Sunday, May the 2nd, happened late in the day, and it was after the Corps of Engineers panicked that the Old Hickory Dam was going to be overtopped, and they released an unbelievable amount of water within 1 or 2 hours, and it flooded downtown. And they were warned by the National Weather Service for 3 or 4 days that a major flood emergency was coming, and they didn't do anything about it. And in some cities, New Orleans, for example, the mayor and the mayor's office fought hard against the Corps. They're getting $1 billion for their flood improvements. And you can debate whether or not our city took the right approach with the Corps, but we were kind of peaceful with them. And I think we should have raised Cain with the Corps for flooding our city. And but be that as it may, the city of Nashville, horrible flood damage. The question is, what is the fairest way to pay for this flood improvement, for these flood improvements? Think about it. Should all the taxpayers in Nashville have to pay for this flood wall downtown, or should the people downtown who are going to get the benefit of the flood wall pay for the flood wall? And in the budget committee meeting today, a representative from the Metro Water Service said that if you build a flood wall, the insurance rates for these people won't come down. That's probably the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. It's like telling a driver who's never had a wreck, your automobile rates won't come down. Your automobile insurance rates won't come down. The reason you build a flood wall is to remove the risk of a flood. If it's not going to work, don't build it. If it's going to work, then the property insurance rates will come down for these people. These big hotels downtown, these big office buildings have already had a free ride one time on tax incentives. My council member over here, Josh Stites, has voted against every one of them. I unfortunately probably voted for too many of them, but we've given these people tax breaks already. We can't give them another one. It's just not fair. At some point, enough's enough. Let the people with the deep pockets downtown pay for their own flood improvements. And it's just not right. My other big question is, will this flood wall actually work? Who's going to guarantee that it's going to work? You know, the Corps of Engineers flooded this once, and they were immune from liability. The Metro Water Department has jurisdiction over this flood wall, and guess what? They're a governmental agency just like the Corps of Engineers. They have immunity from liability. So we've got to get, I want to protect downtown, but it has to be a guarantee that it's going to work. This is the taxpayers' money. If we're going to spend it, let's study it. Councilman Claiborne said, what's the big rush? You know, let's figure this out and let's come up with a fair way to do it, and let's make sure it works. Let's make sure we have somebody standing behind it, guaranteeing that this thing will work. You know, the other thing I've heard is that if you build a flood wall, only 1/16 of an inch of water will move over to East Nashville. That may be true, but think about it. That's based on hydrology reports that say the Cumberland River will flow like a normal river. Guess what? The Cumberland River, if you study it, and I did for 3 years, it's not really a river. It's more of a lake. It's got the Cheatham Locks down on one end, and it's got the Old Hickory Dam on the other end. The water doesn't really flow. It's like a lake. And so during a flood emergency, trust me, the Corps will intervene. The water won't flow like a normal math problem where you study it in the quiet of your study and you analyze, you know, is this water going to move over to East Nashville from the West Nashville flood wall? So I ask you to support Councilman Claiborne on this.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. It's not a question of whether anyone in here wants to protect downtown Nashville or not. You know, I think there was a pep rally last week that kind of said anyone who's voting against this flood wall really isn't concerned about protecting the city of Nashville. Well, 5 years, one month, and 1 week ago, I was in the middle of River Plantation. I came upon this disaster area, and I went over to the fireman who was in charge at the time, an assistant chief, and asked him, you know, how many 911 calls are we behind? I think he was 93 911 calls behind at that point in time. I said, well, you know, we need to get some boats out here. Can you dispatch and get some more boats? He said, well, we only have 2 flood rescue boats in the city, and one had been dispatched to Pennington Bend, and one had been dispatched to North Nashville. So there were no boats. So I got on TV, thanks to the cameras, and begged anyone with a duck boat, John boat, or anything to please come on down. We needed you. Because this area is mostly senior citizens where we were so far behind in 911 calls. We started sending out citizens in their duck boats, and they started bringing people in. Well, we were told at the pep rally that we're all prepared for the next flood, that this is the next step, we need to move on. Well, we had 2 high water rescue boats in 2010. Well, in 2015, ladies and gentlemen, we have 2. And one of them's quite ragged from what I understand, and it wouldn't want to use it. You know, our fire department, you would think they would be fully ready to go for the next flood. Well, we have a training academy that if the codes department went down there tomorrow, they would condemn it. The tower is about to fall down any day now, but we're going to spend $100 million on a flood wall, but there's going to be some firefighter trainees that die in that training academy if something's not done in short order. Well, if a fireman does want to go get training for his water rescue, he has to take time off from his own vacation days, because the only place he can get it is at the ACOE, and we won't send him. He has to take his own time off. And then when he agrees to take his own vacation day to go down there to get the training, he's not allowed the time off to go do it. So another reason I'm wondering why we're so prepared. Then in my area, we got Station 34. They were out of commission for over a week because they were surrounded by water. They had no electricity. So for 5 years, I've asked for a generator to be put at that station so they could function. Still no generator. We didn't have the money. I've told over and over again, we don't have the money. We got the money for a $100 million flood wall, but we don't have the money for a generator for our firemen. I'm speaking for somebody who had 2,497 FEMA recipient homes in the 37221 zip code. 28% of all the homes damaged were in Bellevue, Tennessee and its surrounding area. We only had 3 homes bought out, and they were 3 homes that they were 2-story homes submerged. Should have had a 4th one, but they didn't turn the corner on the street to see the house with the worst damage. But we're going to protect downtown even more, not families.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Councilmember Tigert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I was first elected to this body in the 80s, a lot of time was spent on educating council members on our 2 primary roles. First of all, district council members, and you all can relate to this, are responsible for zoning issues in your district. Secondly, though, and this is where I'm coming from today, is this body serves as the check and balance system on financial matters in this government. I am probably too close to Rich and Greg and Matt and Marty. These are smart, good guys. There were a lot of finance directors, deputy mayors over the years that I were not close to. And it made it easier when there was a financial issue that needed discussing. So with that apology, I'm going to just tell you my problem here. First of all, I don't know what this project cost. Mr. Potter's presentation talked about having $8 million set aside for 30 years to pay for the downtown flood mitigation flood wall. By my math, that's $240 million. In an update, we found out, no, it's only $6 million set aside. That's only $180 million. So this isn't a $100 million flood wall. Factor in the interest and whatnot. We found out tonight, though, we haven't even started the design phase. This is only an estimate. Council members, do we not learn anything when history has a tendency to repeat itself? Until we have good numbers, I'm not comfortable moving ahead with a project like this. This project was presented last year in the capital improvements budget on page 299 of a 320-page document. And we're supposed to know what's in that. But, when it came time to start spending the money, I didn't get a call about it to learn anything about it. Maybe you all did. Maybe I'm out of the loop. And the only reason that we're really getting a chance is because, guess what? There was a wrong funding mechanism. That doesn't bother me as much as the fact that we've already spent $3.5 million on a project that was not funded the right way. Where is the responsibility for the checks and balances in this system? If the council is going to be ignored on the front end, we may as well just disband or call ourselves a zoning committee and forget it. Councilman Todd made the statement about the insurance not changing. And I walked back there and I've asked 3 or 4 of you, if the ratepayers, the water ratepayers are going to pay all across this county and it doesn't save on insurance, that just doesn't make sense. I'm not comfortable with the information that we're even getting today. Councilman Mitchell hit upon, it's tough to me once again to spend money on an area town, as important as our downtown is, when I saw my 82-year-old mother carried from her condominium with water up to her chest. Now, to me, the smart thing to do is when Mill Creek and the Harpeth River and Whites Creek and Browns Creek and Stones River, the comprehensive plan that's under study should come forward. If it's a unified plan, it ought to come together. I'm ready to pull the button and vote for this on a unified plan, but not on the promise that we'll get to you in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, to me, it's the checks and balances, and we've been not responsible for what needs to happen.
Thank you. I failed to get the committee reports on this amendment when we began. Councilmember Pridemore, Budget and Finance on Amendment 1.
Madam Vice Mayor, Amendment 1, Budget and Finance voted 2 for approval of the amendment and 11 against.
Thank you. Councilman Hunt on Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Madam President. Planning and Zoning voted 7 for, 1 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I rise in opposition to this amendment. This council, I believe, I don't know if it was unanimous, but certainly, as Councilman Tigert pointed out, overwhelmingly voted for this project a year ago, and an error has brought it back before us. We also seem to continue to lose the distinction between the CIB and a spending ordinance. This authorizes a maximum amount that can be spent with 21 votes of this council. The flood protection system is prominent in both the Unified Flood Preparedness Plan and the 2012 SOBRO Master Plan. This system is not novel or experimental. This system is sound engineering and technology, and it's already proven in numerous towns on rivers, Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, and it is, I'm told, identical to what's being done by Opryland just down the river. The argument of downtown versus the rest of the city doesn't acknowledge the existing priorities in the flood preparedness plan that have resulted in some $125 million of work throughout the county. Home buyouts, creation of open and green space, creation of the Nashville SAFE program, the online NERV tool, as well as our comprehensive system of storm warning sirens have taken place. This is the next step in what will be and should be the continuous work of this community, the next council, and the next mayor in mitigating the possibility of flood calamity that we experienced. All of Davidson County has a proprietary interest in downtown. It's not more important than the rest of our community, but it is also important. It does account for 19% of our sales tax and 5.5% of our property taxes, all figures that we know will only climb in the next few years. We know the pain of the loss of public revenue that we experienced in 2010. It affected all we did throughout this government and throughout this county. It forced us to make difficult, bold, and appropriate decisions that involved incurring debt to continue to move the city forward. Downtown now also employs over 60,000 people. We now have over 7,500 folks living there, and we know that's going to escalate in the next couple of years. Based on the water and service revenue debt info we have received, this will not result in a rate increase for water payers. It is not general dollars. It is from the debt service of the water department that will pay this. It's our obligation to protect those revenues. It's our obligation to protect the folks that live and work in downtown Nashville. It's our responsibility to do that throughout this entire county. It's not an either-or situation. It's how do we get it all done as quickly as we can. But private insurance will never cover the loss of public revenues if we have another flooding incident in downtown Nashville. We can hope for the best, but I bet the river will flood again. And based on our experience, I believe we must protect the physical safety and security of our citizens and the financial security of our community. We should proceed ahead with the downtown flood protection system that's included in the Unified Flood Preparedness Plan, and I will be voting no on this amendment.
Thank you. Councilmember Stanley.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I rise in support of this amendment. Let me explain to you that I've been on the Metro Council since 1995. In 1998, I was one of only 4 council members that was appointed to the Stormwater Management Master Task Force. And we developed an 8-point plan over a span of 11 months to have Metro adopt a stormwater management master plan. Now, Bill Purcell was the mayor at the time that the master plan was submitted to him. And he submitted that. He made the Stormwater Division a part of Water Services, Metro Water Services, because he brought the director down here of Water Services from Philadelphia. And that director feels he has allegiance first and foremost only to the mayor, whether it be Purcell or Dean. I was going to let you know that in 2003, I was able to get an ordinance passed through the Metro Council that restricted development in the 100-year floodplain. But this area in downtown Nashville that is going to be protected by this $100 million flood wall is in the 500-year floodplain. It is not subject to any type of flooding like suburban Davidson County is. What's more, these properties in downtown Nashville that are going to be protected by this flood wall are income-producing properties. In suburban Davidson County, you have very few income-producing properties. I'll let you know that if this flood wall is developed, it's going to redisperse a lot of flood water from downtown upstream, further east into Davidson County, along Stones River, Cumberland River, Mill Creek, McCrory Creek, Stoner Creek, and all of those creeks, all of those natural waterways are surrounded by properties that are residential in nature. And they represent investments made by individual voters that have put you in office, put me in office. It's our responsibility to protect these voters, to protect them. I don't want to see projects like this come forward to this Metro Council without any input from us. What's more, this flood wall has been directly associated with a backroom opinion. It's been developed by the Water Services Department and by the mayor. It has not had any input from me or from anyone else. I will not support this budget if indeed this amendment is not passed. I ask that you pass this bill at this time because I have a lot of experience in floods. That's one of the reasons I was only one of 4 council members in 1998 appointed by the vice mayor to be on the Stormwater Management Task Force. So I ask that you please support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Berry.
I believe that the members of this council all care deeply about Nashville. I think everybody here cares about their neighborhood. I think everybody cares about downtown. I know that many of the council members who were part of the flood in 2010 served their communities in a way where they were doing rescues. They were absolutely out there. So I'm not going to talk about all of the statistics. I'm not going to talk about all of the engineering and all those other pieces. I'm going to talk about what I think we as council members and Nashvillians think about when we think about Nashville. And I come from Kansas, and we have tornadoes. And I can absolutely tell you that if you could prevent a tornado from touching down and doing damage to somebody's home, you would do it. You would try very hard. All I can look at are all of those photos from Houston that we saw last week or 2 ago. And that was their 3rd significant flood since 2001. And if you could have prevented that, wouldn't you have wanted to do that? Wouldn't you have wanted to protect the life and the property of all of those people? And I think the right answer is absolutely yes. I do think that you want to protect that. So I'm going to vote against this amendment because I do want us to protect downtown. But I agree with Councilman Stein. This is not an either or. This is about making sure that we have universal protection across the entire county. We don't stop here. We continue. And if Pennington Bend needs a flood wall, if Bellevue needs a flood wall, whatever it takes to protect the life and the property. Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Well, maybe not unlike my council member, my friend in District 34, you know me, I'm going to tell a story. And I won't get up and say anything more. I did not say anything during the committee meetings. I thought I'd just wait and say it here. I had 8 or 10 council members to call me and said, have you ever had anything like this to come up before, right at the end of a term? We're 38 days from opening day, early voting. And I said, well, we actually did. And I tried to look to see, was there anybody else in here that was here? So in 1987, Mayor Fulton proposed to replace this building with a new building right over there. And it passed. 25, 26 to 15 or whatever. 30 days, 40 days later, we had an election. The first bill, well, let me just go back just a moment. There was tons of objection from the public about building a new courthouse. Just like we've seen on not only this particular bill, but others that will come before it. So the next council comes up, and the very first bill on that 1987 to 91 council was a bill to repeal the vote to build this building over here, and the vote was 40-0. So I kind of feel the same situation. If this is a good project now, it'll be a good project 90 days from now. If any one of these projects are good projects, they'll be a good project 90 days from now. And I really think that's where they need to be, is they need to be with the next administration. And I hope that's the way you feel about it. Thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I just have a quick question for the administration. Are you sending this proposal, assuming we approve it, to Stormwater Management for review? They actually know what they're looking at, not me.
Council Lady, in committee, there was some conversation about that as it relates to a grading permit. I think it maybe has to go. I'm not an expert on this issue, but from our perspective, it's fine if it goes there and gets reviewed by people who know more about this than I do personally. Happy to do that.
Okay, it is the normal procedure, but I wanted to make sure it was in the record
Sure.
that was your plan.
Sure.
That is your plan.
It is,
okay,
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to yield my time to Councilman Mitchell so he can finish what he wanted to say about Bellevue.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, and I think one of my colleagues said this is not an either or choice. Well, no, you have to set priorities. And I can assure you that Mill Creek will flood people's homes and the Harpeth River will come out of its banks way before the Cumberland River comes out of its banks again. So if we're setting our priorities correctly, we need to make sure those homes of those people, like the homes that were spoke of in Houston, we were talked about homes. We need to protect homes of people. I've got neighbors who, they've got 2 mortgages now. They've got their original mortgage, and then they've got a 6-figure mortgage on rebuilding their home. You know, it's not a choice of having a new car anymore or going on the family vacation anymore. It's, you got 2 mortgages now, and you've got to pay for that for a long time. And like I said, priorities. That Harpeth River will come out of its banks way before. And back to the fire department. You know, we've told we didn't have money for certain things in the fire department, but I think the fire department returned $3.5 million back to the general fund last year. That would have bought a lot of high water rescue boats that would have paid for a lot of a training on the Ocoee by our firefighters, and it would have started paying for a new training academy before someone gets hurt there. So again, it's priorities. Where are our priorities? I think ours should be with the homes and citizens of this county. Someone spoke of Opryland. Well, Opryland paid for their flood wall. If some folks downtown want a flood wall, maybe they can find a way to pay for it and not out of the taxpayers' pockets before we assist the homeowners of the county. But if we can do both, I'm for doing both. But as we said, priorities, and I think the homeowners of this county that will be impacted way before the Cumberland River comes out of its banks should be our first priority. Thank you.
Councilmember Hager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. For the benefit of the members that weren't here earlier, I want to tell my story. As Councilman Garrett tells his story, I'll tell mine, what happened in 2010. And what happened was my office is on 2nd Avenue. And that morning, the sun was out, and I went down to 2nd and Broad, and there were police officers had 1st Avenue blocked off. And they said, Mr. Hager, you need to move back to 5th Avenue. And I said, why? They're getting ready to open the locks on Old Hickory Dam. And as soon as they opened them locks, that water started coming up all the way to 5th Avenue because I was up on the pedestrian bridge. That begs the question, was this a natural disaster or was it also a man-made disaster? And the question that I asked also of Mr. Potter was about the flood wall. The flood wall takes 8 hours to put that wall up. From the time they told me to move back to 5th Avenue, when they got the announcement about the locks on Old Hickory Dam being open, it was between 30 and 45 minutes. Now, they're not going to wait 8 hours to do that. They're not going to do it. They're going to do it when they want to do it and how they want to do it. That begs the question, do we want to spend $100 million on this, or do we want to wait, as we discussed in the committee earlier, to try to get some federal funding? It sounds like that dialogue is going on now. And why should we have to pay for this and make everybody else in the town a sacrificial lamb and just doing it for one side of the river? I cannot support putting this flood wall up without a comprehensive study of all the other areas in town that need flood protection as well. Now, when I left downtown and went out to District 11, which is Old Hickory, I went down to Waterford Subdivision. Waterford Subdivision was completely flooded, and all the neighbors were up there, and there was no way to get down there but by boat. What are we doing for them? And if you were here in 1972 or 73, when Opryland flooded, that was the theme park. Some of you may remember that. They were here. I remember, because I was going to McGavock High School. Come downtown, Opryland theme park was flooded, but the only thing flooded downtown was 1st Avenue, as I recall. It didn't go all the way back like it did before. So I can't support this until we see if we can get some federal funding and a comprehensive study for the Cumberland River and all the tributaries that go into it. Because I still stand by my belief that this was not all a natural disaster, it was also man-made. Thank you.
Councilmember Weiner.
Call for the question, please.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. We only have one more person in the queue, and that would be Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I rise in support of deleting this, and the reason is similar to what has already been shared. I have homeowners who were flooded in the 2010 flood along Owendale Drive in Antioch, southeast Nashville. Many of you may not even realize that, but they were affected tremendously. And I have been working over the last 4 years as a council member for them, trying to get something done through Metro Water to help alleviate that happening again in the future. And you know where we are with that? Zero. Nothing done. And I promised the homeowners there that I would vote against this because it's not a comprehensive study and it leaves out people who were affected during that 2010 flood. So not only Bellevue, not only Old Hickory, but Antioch also experienced significant flooding. And I don't think it's fair to just save one part of the city and everybody else, you're on your own. So we should do the right thing for the citizens in all areas of Nashville. And I don't think this is the time at the end of a council term to pass a bill such as this. It's so significant with not enough input, with not enough consideration of other areas of the city when we're getting ready to have a new council and a new mayor. So I ask that you support Councilman Todd's amendment because we should be doing things that's equitable for everyone in this city.
Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I've spent a whole lot of time agonizing over this decision. I don't think it's a simple one. I think we want to be very careful to spend our ratepayers' money carefully. And some of the questions that I asked of the administration, which they've worked hard to answer for me, number one was, is this going to affect the timing and the funding of stormwater mitigation projects? Everyone in this district has problems that happen every time we have a big gully washer, and we all would like for those to be fixed. My understanding is that comes from a different pot of money, and that money will continue to be spent in a slow but orderly fashion. If we can raise the rates for stormwater fees, we may be able to move faster on that, but that's what it takes to deal with those stormwater issues. The second question that I asked was, would this affect the ability to fund our consent decree projects and also the projects that are replacing our aging water mains? We had information that was sent out this morning that shows that we have bonding capacity for the water sewer funds for up to $500 million. This is $100 million of that. The consent decree is $400 million. There's still an orderly, again, procedure to replace our water mains that I believe will continue. So I believe that question has been answered to my satisfaction. The next question I asked was, are there federal funds available for this? Again, an answer was sent to me that said, we are working on applying for those federal funds for the other parts that were identified in the Unified Flood Protection Plan. That is a comprehensive plan. It's on the Metro Water Services website. It's a public document. It's available to all of us to study once we know that it's there. And it identified 29 different damage areas, I think it's 29, maybe 22, around Metro, and came up with solutions to deal with those. That included flood buyout, it included protection, warning systems which had been put in place. It included this flood wall. It included specific things for each of those areas. And I understand from answers that we were given earlier that the feasibility studies are being done. That's the next step, and then after that, we would be applying for federal funding to do those other areas. If we use all our federal funding on this piece, there may not be federal funding available to do the other parts of town that are so important to deal with, because we do need to deal with those, and those should be part of this overall plan. And then finally, the last question that I asked to myself is, what's the worst thing that would happen if we funded this and we never had a flood? And that would be that we spent some of our money on something that never did anything. And then what's the worst thing that would happen if we didn't spend this money and we did have a flood? And that's an answer that we all know what that looks like. We can look back to 2010, and it's not a pretty picture. So having thought through this very, very thoroughly, I'd love not to have to spend this money, but I think we've gotten good answers to our questions, and I'm going to support keeping this in the capital improvements budget. I do have one question that I've been asked to ask. Can you clarify again, the funding mechanism for this comes out of water revenue, which is from the water rates that people pay. Is there an extra fee that would be required?
No.
We're now ready to vote on this amendment. It will be a machine vote. Councilman Tiger?
If you favor removing the flood wall, you want to vote yes on this amendment.
That's what I was just getting ready to say.
Thank you.
If you want to remove the flood wall, you vote yes on this amendment. If you want to keep this in the capital improvements budget, you will vote no on this amendment. It is a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 19 for, 18 against, 2 abstentions.
The amendment passes. We're now on to Amendment 2. This basically deletes the master plan for the Sheriff's Administration Building, Processing Center, Kitchen Upgrade, Infirmary, and new housing unit. Council Member Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all due respect to amendments that have been offered that include multiple items, I would move this to the Hill.
Okay, we're going to move this to the Hill. Could I get a committee report first? Councilmember Pridemore.
Budget and Finance voted on amendment number 2 for disapproval, 2 for the amendment, 11 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and Zoning approve amendment number 2, 5 for, 3 against.
Thank you. We will move that to the Hill. Next, we have Amendment 3. It is an amendment to delete the new headquarters for the Metro Police Department and the parking garage. Who's the spot? Councilmember Gilmore.
I would like to move mine to the Hill, too.
Okay. Could I have a committee report? Councilmember Pridemore, did we get a committee report on that one? Okay.
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor. On amendment number 3, Budget and Finance voted for disapproval, 2 for, 10 against, and 1 abstention.
Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning approve amendment number 3, 7 for, 3 against.
Thank you. We'll now
1
move
abstention.
on to amendment number 4. Councilmember Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, this is the amendment to delete both the police headquarters and the parking garage and the master plan for the new Sheriff's Administration Building, Processing, and the kitchen upgrade. Councilmember Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Based on advice from the council member who's offered to combine 3 issues, and we've already taken the floodwall, I would move approval of this amendment.
We have a motion. Oh, I need a committee report. Councilmember Pridemore.
Amendment number 4, Budget and Finance voted for disapproval, 2 for, 11 against.
Thank you, Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and Zoning voted to approve 6 for, 0 against. 6 for, 3 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Councilmember Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. While much discussion was had during our combined committee meetings earlier on this proposal, I offer it with the approval of Council Lady Gilmore of the district for the police headquarters. I offer it at the request of residents in North Nashville as well as those in Southeast Nashville. And it's not that we disapprove of improving our jail or we disapprove of police headquarters being built. The challenge we have is the properly and fully vetting of this proposal. According to the comments of the mayor in April 21st, this is the largest investment in public safety in the history of this city. The 21st of April to today is 49 days. At least it was when I was in school. That's how many calendar days there were. Things may have changed these days. You never know. But the fact is, it's 49 days, 37 of which we were not provided with the study that was done. And the study we approved in our capital improvement budget or capital spending plan was not the Davidson County Sheriff's Office master plan, but a judicial campus master plan. That was in the spending plan. If you pull that up, that's what it stated. To date, none of us in this body have seen the judicial campus master plan. I question whether it exists or whether we funded a Davidson County Sheriff's Office master plan. That's the question. The challenge is, for me, in the capital improvement budget last year, the Davidson County Sheriff's Office master plan included $5 million, not $1.5 million. But it was not funded in the capital spending plan, having reviewed that. Ultimately, the issue at hand is, have we fully vetted this? And the question is no. Have we determined whether or not the best location is on Harding Place, the best location is in Jefferson Street? The answer is no. Have we involved the community in this process at any point? The answer is no. Have we involved the council members in this process? Other than approving spending money, we're not clear exactly how much, because we approved $1.5 million for a judicial campus master plan. Now, if anybody in this body has seen that, I'd love to see a raise their hand. We have seen a Davidson County Sheriff's Office master plan, which is, I would point out, is different according to the line items in the capital improvement budget. We know for a fact that the RFP to build the jail on Harding Place was issued the 1st of May, ahead of us taking the first vote on this budget. We know for a fact there's email came from the Sheriff's Office in April of 2013 saying that we would have a study for us to review in May of 2013, 1 year before the funding was approved to do that study. We know for a fact that in 2014, we approved the spending in June. But we know from the emails that we have from the Sheriff's Office that the study was supposed to have been completed in May of 2014. Again, on my calendar when I was growing up, May always came before June. Now, here's the other thing. We were told April 21st when we came down here to this body that the study had been completed a few weeks or a few months. It was really unclear as to how soon it was completed. I reviewed the Davidson County Sheriff's Office master plan, and that study has data in it that was not finished April 21st. The stamp from the production of those documents is May 22nd, 2015. Again, we have the cart before the horse. The blueprints for the jail at Harding Place include a copyright date of 2013. The image we were shown about the new location on Harding Place for the jail includes tearing down the police precinct there, built 17 years ago, and includes tearing down the fire hall. We do not have funding in our budget to replace that fire hall that I've found anywhere. Maybe somebody can find that. If you do, then maybe it'd be a great idea to approve this. We have a lot of questions that haven't been answered. There's a lot of opportunities where the cart has been put before the horse, and I respectfully ask that you withdraw this, allow this body, whether it's this one or the next one coming up, to review this and fully vet it, and then move forward as a body.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I stand in opposition to this amendment. Point number one, we have moved to the Hill 2 other amendments. I believe that this body, every individual council person, should stand up and have their voice heard on each individual amendment. Allow the community to see how you feel and how you vote. I believe that this amendment should be defeated to allow the public to see democracy at work, where we vote, whether we're for it, against it, or abstaining. But let's vote for each project individually, not together. Why? Because the police headquarters is a different project than the one in Southeast Davidson County. And there may be some people who support one but don't support the other, or against one and for the other. So we should be allowed to vote for each one individually on their own merit. My second point is this, is that the police headquarters funding, there is nothing in the legislation currently that states that the site of the headquarters has to be on Jefferson Street. So what we should do as a council is vote to keep the funding. The mayor sent a letter, and the letter is public. It was addressed to Council Lady Erica Gilmore, but the letter was made public. where the mayor has agreed to do community meetings. So the very complaint that has been made that not enough dialogue has taken place, the mayor has committed to having dialogue in the community to determine whether the North Nashville Jefferson Street area wants it. If they don't want it, then every district council person here or in the next term will then have an opportunity, if you keep the funding in, to get the headquarters in your district. So please do not deny funding for the headquarters when you have an opportunity to get the headquarters for your district if we don't want it. I have talked to 12 council members, and all 12 told me, I want it in my district. Well, if you want it, keep the funding in. Finally, I want to address something, is that there have been some statements that have been made, and I want to make sure that we address this. There were 3 organizations that had a press conference on the steps of the Metro courthouse, and they said that they represented the community. There were 13 or 14 of them. That's it, 13 or 14. 2 letters or 3 letters have been sent to us saying that they were in opposition, saying they represent all the residents and they represent students and members of this and members of that. They never signed the letter. We don't know who wrote the letter. We don't know who they represent. We don't know what's going on because we never found out who actually wrote the letter and who supports it. I have a letter from the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership that represents the business owners along Jefferson Street that will be directly impacted by this police headquarters. And guess what? Their signatures are on the letter. These are business owners directly affected and impacted that are on Jefferson Street, and they overwhelmingly support it. JUMP, the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership, consists of merchants and residents who own property on Jefferson Street. They had a membership meeting and they unanimously voted in favor of the police headquarters. Their membership is on their JUMP website. Go to it. Then their board of directors, based on the membership recommendation, voted to support the headquarters based on the membership's vote for the headquarters. That is a legitimate organization that has been around for 20 years, started by Councilman Ludi Wallace. Finally, there are 13 abandoned buildings on Jefferson Street. There was a car wash that had crack dealing and sales, prostitution, and murder right there in the heart of Jefferson Street. MDHA bought the garage, gave it to 15th Avenue Baptist Church's Community Development Corporation. They redeveloped it and made it a mixed-use development. That then spawned and led to Hope Gardens, Buena Vista, Salem Town, and other developments. And guess what? Those communities are now thriving and they're integrated. There are blacks and whites and Hispanics that live in those neighborhoods. Please vote against this.
Councilmember Todd.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've got some thoughts on this, but sometimes you get an email from one of your constituents that actually says it better than you can say it yourself. So let me just read one quick short email that I got this morning. It's from George Groon of Groon Guitars, and I think he says it so well. He says, "It is clear that Mayor Dean's request for funding for a downtown flood wall, police headquarters on Jefferson Street, and relocating the jail to Antioch are controversial and are of a scope that cannot be completed in his remaining term of office. Even if these projects were approved by the council tonight, they would have to be built during the term of the next mayor. In view of that fact, that we do not even know who will be our next mayor, and not all of the mayoral candidates agree on the specifics of these proposed projects, common sense dictates that any action regarding these projects should be deferred until the next mayor takes office. It's common sense." My wife likes to tell me when I do something, I want to act impulsively to slow down. Her expression is, "Carter, if this is a good idea now, it will be a good idea in 6 months." That is so true here. Let's slow down and get all the facts about these 2 big projects. I think we're really blessed to have a great mayor here in Nashville. Carl Dean has done a great job. Our city, people call it the IT city. In fact, I think we've had 24 years of really great mayors. However, for some reason, this administration seems to be rushing here at the very end to get a bunch of large capital projects done, and it seems without doing all of their homework. I had reservations about the Sound Stadium, but I felt like the mayor had earned the benefit of our doubt. He's done a great job. Why not go ahead and vote with him on that, even though I thought they were going too fast on the Sound Stadium? Well, the project was almost 30% over budget, and it was built without a parking garage. This time on these big projects, I don't feel like we can give him the benefit of the doubt. They're pushing too hard, pushing too fast. I'm hearing stories about backroom trades that would turn your stomach if they're true. I mean, things that just unbelievable. Councilman Tygart sent out an article last week about building consensus at the grassroots level when you want to do big capital projects. I think that's lacking here. This is not how I want to see Nashville grow, by seeing things forced down. I think they ought to start at the grassroots level. I'll close by quoting George Green one more time. Common sense dictates that any action regarding these projects should be deferred until the next mayor takes office. Thank you.
Councilmember Evans.
This is like deja vu all over again. Robert and Walter and I were here in this room in the summer of 2007 having an identical conversation to this one. Councilman Schulman stood up and he said, we need to just wait for the next mayor. Well, we're the government. We can't stop and start every 8 years. We have to continue to operate. So I'm going to vote no on this, but I hope, Council Lady Gilmore, you will offer your amendment separately, because I think you have some politics in your district that transcend simple budgetary matters that need to be addressed on the ground and within your community. So I'm going to vote no on this, and I think we all just need to keep the government running.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think Councilmember Domini and Councilmember Todd basically shared what my sentiments were, which is I'm asking that this be deleted, and it is because the process was not adhered to. And I'm not against development. I think no one would argue that Jefferson Street needs development, but it has to be the right type of development, and the people have to be ready for it. And when we had the public hearing last week, 67, I wrote it down, 67 people got up and spoke against having the headquarters there, and there was not one person that spoke for it. So, like I said, initially I was for it, but then when people ask me about it, they say, well, how does it look? I don't know, because we never had renderings. And normally with projects, we usually have renderings. We say, well, what's the financial impact? I don't know, because there is no finance. We didn't get any of that. So I think that needs to be had. We will have that discussion, but I think that everyone deserves that, and this project has not been properly vetted. And I think we're not saying no. We're just saying give us information, and if we need to amend it back in, we will, and we'll work with any of those council members that would like the headquarters. And that is why I'm asking. The constituents participated in Nashville Next. There was no discussion of the headquarters. They participated in the sub-area 8 plan. There was no discussion. And these are official planning documents, so they felt blindsided when this was mentioned. So that's why I'm asking that this will be deleted. And if you can't support this one, I'll get back up and ask for your support again. Thank you.
Councilmember Berry.
Actually.
Okay. Councilmember Dow.
Thank you.
Try again.
Hello. I just want to say, reiterate what I said in Budget and Finance a little bit earlier with regard to all 3 of these proposed initiatives. I think all of us would agree that we're not necessarily for or necessarily against some of these. I think the biggest issue is that we don't have all the information we need to make an educated decision on these projects. And that's where I think that's where the conflict is. We have, I see no reason to separate these 2 bills, and because both of these bills, the Criminal Justice Center as well as the police headquarters, are 2 pieces of legislation that both of our communities have serious issues with. And whether they're valid issues or not, they deserve to be heard, vetted out, and addressed. There may be some room where we can compromise and agree on that this is the best solution to these projects, but they have not had an opportunity to have their concerns addressed. When I think about when they ask me, how would the inmates get back when they're released? I don't know. I don't know. With regard to the flood wall that we're building, to step back on this, I don't know if it's going to be funded from their water tax and all these kind of things. Every project that has been presented here has always come, whether I agree with it or not. I've had the opportunity to sit down, whether it was Bridgestone, the Nashville Sound Stadium, the bridge, the $25 million bridge. We approved every pilot program. I felt very privileged to have someone come to me and convince me that this was the best thing to do. And when I voted in good conscience. And when I reached out to my community and they had concerns about it, I was able to explain to them why this is in the best interest of Nashville. For the first time since I've been on this council, I cannot answer those questions with these 3 pieces of legislation. I asked in Budget and Finance one simple question, was what is the urgency? Is the building going to fall down tomorrow? Do we have to get the police headquarters out by this afternoon? We sat here and watched to 10 o'clock at night, if you don't remember, neighbor after neighbor, voter after voter come here and say that they have concerns. And I think as leaders, we deserve to hear those people out, and they deserve to hear, have their concerns addressed by us. And I think by voting on these things without having the opportunity to hear from them is a little bit frivolous, and it's irresponsible of us. So I ask that you support removing both of these. We get a new council to come in, a new mayor. It's only a few months later they can put it back in and we can do whatever. But we need to go back to our communities and have conversations about these projects. Because I do believe if we have conversation and communication, there may be some opportunity to move forward with all of them.
Councilmember Matthews.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I'm going to stand in support of this amendment. And I want to commend Council Lady Erica Gilmore first and foremost for her leadership in her district. I know this has been a very difficult situation. I attended the rally that was held on Jefferson Street. I attended the town hall meeting that was held at Pleasant Green Missionary Church. And I grew up in Nashville. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I spent a lot of time on Jefferson Street and in North Nashville. I personally would like to see the police headquarters there. I don't think that Chief Anderson had any malicious intent on proposing the police headquarters there. In fact, I feel like when I hear people compare us to Ferguson or other cities, Baltimore, and try to compare the climate of Nashville to other cities, I really think about Chief's intent of proposing to put the police headquarters there, and I don't feel like that would happen in any of those other cities. I don't think the chief of police in Ferguson would want to go work in the African American community every day. I don't think that would happen in some other cities where we've had the police have very bad situations happen with civilians. And I commend him for that. But I agree with Councilor Lady Gilmore, and I agree with most of my colleagues from Southeast Davidson County that there has been a lack of process. There has been a lack of information, and I don't think that this is a time-sensitive thing that we have to do now. I wish I could vote against this amendment. I wish I could abstain, but quite frankly, when we think about public hearing, there were very few people that came to public hearing and spoke in favor of these two projects. And I personally think that as leaders in our community, as representatives of what's happening in our community, we have to take that into account. So I'm not gonna vote against this. I'm gonna vote with this amendment, and I want to ask everyone else to respect the community wishes and do the same.
Councilmember Bedney.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A little bit ago, we heard a comment about the importance of continuing the government functioning. I think we are the government, or at least part of it, and we represent these great people that came here today, and we haven't even been able to start doing our job of running the government because that was denied from us. We tried to have meetings, to have community engagement in the process of creating this relocation or finding what is the best way to do that, and that never happened. So instead of talking about continuing with the government, we should talk about starting engaging with the government and the people of Nashville to have a positive relationship in deciding how we do things. Thank you.
Councilmember Bennett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a moment of clarification. Mr. Cooper, I understood earlier in budget that it does not say Jefferson Street in the headquarters.
Correct.
So we're just approving for a headquarters, not Jefferson Street. So Dickerson Road has that same opportunity to get it as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Scott Davis.
Today, we have difficult decisions facing us. And frankly, I will encourage my colleague, the Honorable Erica Gilmore, no matter what happens, if it passes or fails, please keep up the fight, and please, if you need to, pursue your amendment, please. More importantly, though, there's a voice that has not been heard in this whole conversation. And if I misheard it, or if I didn't, or it was said and I didn't listen, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. However, hearing the public hearing, a lot of people are talking about, I don't want this in my neighborhood. I don't need this. And because of the time that we live in with Ferguson, Trayvon Martin, and different issues, we go through a lot of things. However, no one is listening to the voice of those who are incarcerated right now, who need services, who are being returned to our neighborhoods. I heard people talk about not wanting those people roaming around their neighborhoods. You know, when they get released, they're going to walk to my house. There's no bus that's going to come out there. Majority of them, of the women and men that are in our correctional facility, in our county jail, they're there on minor offenses, and a large portion of them are innocent until proven guilty. These are my neighbors. These are your neighbors. Heck, these are some of our family members. And no matter what happens with this, with the Sheriff's Department's correctional facility, or the county jail, I'm proposing that $5 million, if the land is sold, goes to helping those families, like with Project Return, after-school programs, and other things to help our brothers and sisters re-entering the system. This is the conversation that we've been failing to have in our neighborhoods. You know, instead of focusing on who gets what facility, who gets what headquarters, we need to focus on those of us that are returning from those facilities, be it the county jail for a speeding ticket. When you forget to pay the speeding ticket, you get your license revoked and you get arrested. You don't go from that to committing major crimes. Or the mother that steals peanut butter from the neighborhood Walmart. I mean, I don't consider those folks criminals. I consider them my neighbors. And we have to look at that. And we need to focus on that. So I'm just asking all of you, no matter how you vote, we have to remember all of those folks, because they are human beings. And the gentleman that wanted us to close our eyes and think of sewage, that made me sick, because I don't think they're sewage. They are human beings, our neighbors. So let's look at this no matter what happens. The sheriff does need a new facility. We know that it's falling apart. So no matter what we decide to do, if that land goes, or if it stays, or goes to the moon, when we sell that facility, $5 million of that needs to go to help those families in the reentry process for our brothers and our sisters. Thank you.
Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just for point of clarification, Mr. Cooper, if this amendment fails, and then others that have it all included happens to pass, what's going to be the reigning amendment at the end of the day?
Well,
I don't know if I made sense in my.
If this one passes, then
Yeah.
we would not consider any other amendments dealing with the flood wall, jail, or police headquarters. So we would, I mean, whatever amendments that were submitted that deal with those subjects.
Well, if this amendment fails.
If this amendment fails.
Right.
Then we would go back to the amendments that were put on at the heel.
Okay. And then, so if they happen to pass, it will override this one that failed?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to have clarification. In the event this one fails And then we also put in the renovation project for the jail, because we obviously, some of these have gone to the hill, so we don't know how they're going to land. Just because it's in the CIB doesn't mean that it has to be implemented, correct?
That's correct. And I think by putting them at the heel, that would really be after this amendment. So I think after this amendment, we would go back to those other two that are related to the same two projects before moving on to anything else.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to ask Mr. Reebling a question. Is this, if these projects are approved, will there be right-of-way construction, or will there be community meetings? Because I did hear, the outpour of individuals saying, they wanted more community meetings and to at least, have their say on both of these projects. Will there be construction right away with this, or what? Would this be a year away or 2 years away?
You're on.
Councilor Moore, as it relates specifically to two different projects, one is the headquarters project, I guess, and the other would be the jail, the sheriff's office relocation. Obviously, it's going to take some time for any construction to commence on those projects. There's been no design. They have to go through a process to get a contract for a design build team to do the work. So there clearly would be time to have some meetings to let everyone know what the plans are for those areas, specifically as relates to the sheriff's facilities. And as it relates to the headquarters facility, the mayor's made the commitment that before making any decision on where it should go, there'd be community meetings specifically as to the Jefferson Street site. I would remind the council that the city does not own that property along Jefferson Street, so the council would have to approve the acquisition of that property. So that is a vote that has to come back to the council. So there will be opportunity and a commitment from the mayor to have meetings on that subject. So short answer is nothing would happen immediately. There needs to be design, time process, which would give opportunities on both areas for more community input to get some, to address some of the concerns that neighbors and citizens might have on how the project might be designed and constructed to be more compatible with both neighborhoods.
Okay. And so if the on the Jefferson Street project, or the police headquarters, if those properties are not, if the owners do not want to sell the properties, it's a moot point anyway. Is that not correct?
Obviously the council ultimately has the power to approve an ordinance by eminent domain, but I would think that that's probably highly unlikely that would be approved. I mean, I think the key is as the mayor made in his commitment to Council Lady Gilmore, is that we're going to have, we don't want to do something that's divisive for the community on Jefferson Street. I think, as some council members have said, I think the intent of the chief was well intended in terms of why, but if the community is divisive over it, then there needs to be a look some other places. And I think we'll find out we would find out if this stays in the plan over the next month what the community really wants, and then the council would have the ultimate say-so on where it's located.
And I appreciate that response. I just want to say I do pledge to any council member in here that, I would love to, host a community meeting just to, see that, the money stay in for the police headquarters, but how we vote tonight, I know that it's a struggle. We struggle day to day with our decisions. And I, as a council member, have always tried to be fair, and yet in researching what I need to. And I did research, information about the police headquarters as well as the CJC. So I know it's a struggle for me, and I'm not doing this for votes. I'm doing this because I try to be a fair council person. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Dominic.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Reebling, can you please tell this body whether or not you've reviewed the Davidson County Sheriff's Office Master Plan?
I have reviewed most of that plan, I would say, yes.
Would you say you've reviewed the 2-inch stack of blueprints for the proposed jail on Harding Place?
I'm not an engineer or an architect, so me looking at blueprints would not serve much purpose.
That's not what I asked. Have you reviewed those blueprints for the proposed jail on Harding Place?
I don't think, if they exist, I've not seen them.
There's a 2-inch stack of blueprints for the proposed jail on Harding Place. There is an RFP that has been issued the 1st of May. That RFP was accepted bids the 19th of May at 1 p.m. before we voted on the first reading of this proposal. The sheriff in testimony said that we would start building July 1. To suggest that the plans have not been drawn yet is simply a lie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we went through this last week. Outbursts are not allowed. If they continue, we will clear the chamber. Councilmember Dominy, did you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Hager.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. This is for Mr. Ribbling. With this plan of the CJC, I understand the building over here would be taken down, but what about the Blackwood Jail, which is down on 2nd Avenue? What was the plans for it? I never did get a clear understanding of that.
All of the sheriff's operations would move to Harding Place. So they would replace those facilities as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harmon.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had a question too while we're talking about the facilities. Is there a plan for where the South Precinct would go when it's displaced by the Sheriff's Office? Or is that just to be determined in the future?
There's no location has been identified at this time. We would look at somewhere, generally speaking, I think the chief would say that he thinks from a police perspective, it needs to be somewhere in the region of the mall, of the old Hickory Hollow Mall area, not somewhere in that area is where he would prefer it being, I believe.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I'd like to share a little story of my own, if I may. Not from the 80s, but with all due respect to my elder colleagues, District 26 sits at a crossroads in Davidson County. It's represented by 3 senators, 4 state representatives, 3 school board members, and a councilman and a pear tree. So there are a lot of folks involved there, a lot of things going on. When I took office, we were covered by the South Precinct, my entire district. That was good. Midtown Hills came along, and initially everyone was really excited because part of District 26 would be covered by a new precinct. But the conversation, as it went on a little bit more and a little bit longer, as things got a little bit closer to time, there was more concern raised because, in fact, instead of being covered by a precinct that was really not that far away, we were going to be covered by a precinct that's off of Wedgwood. It's just further away. I heard the sheriff mention in one of the public meetings, I think at the South Precinct, that where he lives, he felt very far away from Midtown Hills. So two neighborhoods in my district, Creve Hall, Caldwell Abbey Hall, they moved into Midtown Hills, and they sit on what I call the frontier of Midtown Hills jurisdiction. But if this went forward and South Precinct moves away, then that gets the third major neighborhood in my district, which is Paragon Mills. And those folks, whether they're covered or not, and they will be covered, I believe that we have adequate police coverage, but there's a comfort in having that precinct down the road from them. They face a lot of struggles in that community. There's a lot of crime. And so I just want to say that that's a concern that I haven't heard anybody bring up. And I wanted to bring that to your attention. Then, if that happened, all of District 26 would have had its precincts move further and further away from those areas. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Councilmember Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay. Saul? Okay. This is a general question, and the citizens of Nashville need to know. And I just have to ask the question. I'm sorry. Was there a RFP issued before this was approved? Because
Mr. Cooper?
Or somebody answer that question for me?
Mr. Cooper?
I can say that it would not be out of the ordinary for an RFP to be issued. An RFP does not bind the government to anything. That is just asking for developers, contractors, whatever you're seeking, if they're interested in bidding and what their bid would be. Obviously, if the project is not approved, no contract would be awarded. So the issue of issuing an RFP does not bind Metro to anything.
Councilmember Tenpenny?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor, I just would like to know, Mr. Riebling pointed his finger at Councilman Donovan and called him a liar, and I'd just like for him to discuss and tell me why that was a lie, what he was saying.
I don't think that's not what he said, unless...
Yes, he did. I was sitting here watching him. I mean, I was sitting here back watching and seeing exactly what he said.
No.
I'd just like to know why he called him a liar.
I think that's a conversation you can have after the council meeting.
Do you
It's
think
not
that's appropriate for
right
our
now.
finance director to be calling us council members liars? I don't think so. Yes, it is.
Councilmember Berry?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. You know, we've worked together, all of us, for the last 7.5 years. We've worked with this administration. We've all worked together as council members. And I hate to see that we're headed to an end game here where you've got folks on the back row saying that the administration is corrupt. You've got folks who are calling people liars. I mean, the reason we're the It City, the reason why we have done so many wonderful things together is because we've worked together. And when I look at this particular piece in front of us, because that's what we've got to think about tonight, I'm sad that we're combining them. I think that you've got two different discussions that could happen on two different pieces of this. I have said all along that I'm not going to support the movement of the jail. I think Councilman Davis gave some pretty good reasons why we need to be concerned about not only where we're going to locate this, but also the population that is served by the justice system and making sure that they still have the capacity to be served with their lawyers, with their transit, et cetera. But that aside, I'm sorry that we're not considering the police headquarters, because it's really clear to me that all of you in the council are clamoring to have this in your district potentially. It sounds like a really great development. The reality is that we have public hearing nights, and public hearings are on zoning. So when people come up to express other opinions because they don't have a chance to express their frustration on other things, we hear it during the zoning process. I think we need to do a better job about having the community have access to opportunities to speak about the things that they care deeply about. Having said that, because these are combined, I'm going to have to vote to support taking these out. But what I will promise is that I hope that the next council will put them back in, because it will take 27 votes to do it, but I think that both of these need to be considered. We have an aging facility across the road that needs to be addressed in a meaningful way, but we also need to make sure that we're bringing development to the parts of the community that want it. Thank you.
Councilmember Claiborne?
Previous question.
You're the last one in the queue. Previous question passes. We're going to have a machine vote. If you want to take both of these projects out of the capital improvements budget, vote yes on this amendment. If you want to keep them in, vote no. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 18 for, 19 against, 2 abstentions.
The amendment fails. We will now go back to Amendment 2, which basically deletes the DSCO master plan for the Sheriff's Administration Building, the Processing Center, the kitchen upgrade, the infirmary, and the new housing. Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I renew my motion for approval with all the previous comment regarding the other bill.
We have a motion and a second. We'll have a machine vote. All in favor of this amendment? Councilman Potts, did you wish to speak? Hang on, folks.
Yes, I wasn't going to speak. I never say much at these council meetings, but I have to speak about this.
Madam Clerk, clear the machine, please.
I didn't speak on the other amendments just because I thought they might pass, but I have to speak on this. This is in my heart. And, you know, when I ran for council in 2011, I was devoted to my constituents, and I always am, and I'm appreciative of my district and what I do. But I'm going to be short and sweet. The way I've been treated throughout this process has just been unacceptable. You know, as we debate on issues, we can agree to disagree, and we can, you know, be on different sides of the fence no matter what it is. But when you say someone is dishonest and can't be trusted, that's just wrong. And when it gets to that point, you want to say, what did I do? You know, what did I do wrong? I'm just here to serve the community, vote in the best interest of the community, and I would hope that each person that called me about that will respect that and not get into take it too personal. I am kind of nervous. I'm sorry I'm speaking like this, but I just want to let y'all know that before y'all vote, because this is very important for South Nashville. Thank you.
We will now have a machine vote. If you want to remove the Sheriff's Department master plan from the capital improvement budget, vote yes on this amendment. If you want to leave it in, vote no. I need everyone in the room voting, please. Yes, no, or abstention. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 19 for, 17 against, 2 abstentions.
The amendment passes. Next, we'll move on to Amendment 3. This amendment would remove the plan for the new for the police administration building and the parking garage. Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I stand again to ask you to delete this from the budget this afternoon. And please understand that it can be amended back in, and it can be amended back in at this particular council cycle. We have up until August, and I did discuss that with the mayor as well as Greg Hino. The reason I'm asking that this be deleted is because I do think we need discussion. And at this point, the community honestly does not trust. There's been some trust, some distrust that has occurred, and I think we need to listen. And I think if any of you had this in your district, you would want meetings, you would want readings or renderings, you would want to know the financial impact. And also, I would like to share, when the press conference was released, the person's land that was in consideration, they didn't get the letters until afterwards. So all we're saying is we need more discussion. I agree with Council Lady Berry. It was a particular public hearing night. There was a lot going on. We are going to take it out into the community, but I would like for us to delete it out and put it back in. So that's why I'm asking. And another thing, too, I want us to work with the community and not do things to the community. And I think if you say we're going to put it here and you keep on moving forward, it still looks like even though you're saying you're not, it gives the appearance of we're still going to move forward, we're not going to listen to you. And the community feels that way. Not everybody, because some people are really for it. But the fact that there was no discussion about it. We have not had one meeting as a city. There were no renderings. There was no study. All the things we did with Sulphurdale or the Tennessee ballpark, it just did not happen. Things that we do for normal protocol did not happen in this particular event. That's why I'm asking for your support. We can amend it back in during this particular cycle. If one of you want it and it does not work out, and we'll find a better answer for Jefferson Street. This might not be the perfect project. There might be another project. I think the people have spoken, and we need to continue to work together because it's so divisive. There are some people that want it. The business owners want it. I respect that. But there are a lot of people that don't as well. And that's why I'm asking for your support. And that's why I'm asking that you amend it out. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I want to deal with the facts, and that is this. This specific language of the legislation does not require that it be on Jefferson Street. What was stated is that the police chief desired that it be on Jefferson Street because he thought it would provide economic development and stimulus to an area that he was concerned about and he wanted to better the relationships between the police department and the community in North Nashville. But there's nothing in the legislation that states that it has to be on Jefferson Street. So this was not a slap in the face to anyone or total disregard. Simply the police chief was saying what his desire wanted to be. So if you leave the funding in, then we can have this police headquarters located in Bellevue, Donaldson, Hermitage, Antioch, probably not Belmead, but somewhere close. If you decide, sorry, Council Lady Evans, but wherever you want it, if the people on Jefferson Street and the community does not want it. Lastly, I want to say this, and in support of the funding. We all know that private investment follows public investment. Look at the Gulch, look at Sobro, look at Midtown, look at 12th Avenue South, look at parts of Buena Vista, Salem Town, Hope Gardens. Look what's happened with Jefferson Street. I respect my colleague, Councilman Linnell Matthews, so much. He and I both served on the board of the Jefferson Street United Merchants Partnership. He and I both gave our time and our energy of cleaning up Jefferson Street. A lot of people don't remember Jefferson Street 14, 15 years ago when you and I started. When it was, no one would walk up and down Jefferson Street. I'm like Councilman Potts, I gotta tell you, because this is my last hurrah on the budget and finance. No one would walk up and down it. No one would invest on Jefferson Street. We had all kind of prostitution. We had crack vials in the gutter next to on the curb. And yet Jump, working with business leaders and the churches, cleaned up Jefferson Street. We went to crack houses in Hope Gardens with MDHA support and with Metro support. We built Row 8.9, if you recall that, which was a stimulus in order to have more development. We gave money for a drugstore across the street from Row 8.9. And then MDHA bought houses and properties in the Hope Gardens, Buena Vista, Salem Town area, then sold it to private citizens who agreed that they would redevelop those houses. I know of 2 crack houses on 11th Avenue that were purchased and sold to people, individuals, residents, to rebuild them. Now look at Hope Gardens, look at Buena Vista, look at Salem Town. They are a diverse community. Why? Because it represents all of us. And public funds and investments leads to private investment. You all know this. Finally, I'll say this as my last comment. Don't take away this funding, because what can happen is if you want it, and it is the city is persuaded to put it in your district, you don't have to get 27 votes. You only have to get 21. I think all of us can agree that a $23 million administrative office building with civilians and the police chief and his staff working there is good for your neighborhood. It will cause economic development. It will cause employees to go and shop in your areas. I would love it to be on Jefferson Street. But bigger than that, I would love for us to have a new police headquarters in an area that needs an economic stimulus. Private dollars follows public dollars. Don't take away this funding. We had just a few people with loud mouths talk about their position on this. I have letters that people have signed. I want to say this last point. A lot of people that spoke were not from North Nashville when they spoke, of those 67. They were from another part of town.
Thank you. Councilmember Blaylock.
Yeah, we just voted not to move the jail out, so I just wonder, is there really even a need to have a new headquarters move out?
Mr. Cooper.
Well, that would be up to the administration and the next administration. This preserves the option for a new police headquarters. There's also another amendment forthcoming that would propose a project to renovate the existing CJC, which could, depending on what the scope of that renovation, if the sheriff and next administration decide to go that route, could require a new headquarters.
Okay, so, but basically, I think if you just voted to not move the jail, then you should also be for this one as well, because we're going to, I would think we would take them both at the same time. Thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I stand in support of Ms. Gilmore and the people she represents. I believe that this is a country of we the people. And I realize we're a representative government, and each one of us are elected to vote as a representative for the people that we represent. And we vote a lot of times our own mind, our own conscience. I'm part of this back line back here, this group that stands together, that believes in united we stand and divided we fall. And I hope that we're united with Miss Gilmore now. There was a big pitch at the beginning to say we didn't want to vote on the bill combined. All three needed to be voted on individually, and two have went down in flames. It's time for the third one to do the same. Erica, thank you so very much for what you're doing for your people, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Councilmember Evans.
I think my question already got answered about the two buildings being so intertwined. I'm kind of with Council Lady Blaylock. I'm not really sure if we voted against the other one, we're supposed to vote for this one. But as I said before, I think Council Lady Gilmore has some things she'd like to do that really transcend just simple budgeting and economic development. And there's really some community building that I think needs to go on there, because one thing I've learned in politics is letters from business groups or whatever really don't amount to much when you're talking to real human beings, and that's what sounds like you need to do. So I'm going to support the council lady as she moves forward with working with her community.
Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to say I support having the police headquarters on Jefferson Street. It will really be a catalyst for North Nashville. I went to school in North Nashville, St. Vincent de Paul, then on to Pearl High School, then on to Tennessee State University. I have never been injured or hurt on Jefferson Street. Jefferson Street is a beautiful place if you look 10 years to the future, look 5 years to the future. With police headquarters, it will be a strong catalyst for other businesses to come. I've talked to an Old Charlie's, I've talked to an Applebee's, and they're looking for someone to be first in line to represent strong businesses and to come there. And this police headquarters would be that strong business. Everyone would support a police headquarters coming in, especially a business. I only represent 2 blocks of Jefferson Street from 26th to 28th, but I shop all up and down Jefferson. I go to Woodcuts to get all my framing that Councilmember Baker and I just presented on Friday night. That is a strong business. Rosetta Miller Perry, she is a publisher. Her paper is located 1501 Jefferson Street, and she's a strong voice in the North Nashville community. J.T. Smith, he has a barbershop. Several generations of being there. Councilmember Lionel Matthews just had a new Waffle House open up across the bridge that has really made a spark to Clarksville Highway, and which is just a little bit west of the 21st District. I'm proud of the 21st District. We have a Lexus dealership. We have a 2831 connector that has been promised for 88 years, and Mayor Dean placed it there. Everybody compliments that. We have a medical college here in North Nashville, which is located in the 21st District. How many people can say that they have a medical college with a hospital, a city hospital located right there? So think about it. The headquarters is going to be a strong, strong catalyst and a strong viewpoint. How many places can say that a police headquarters is located in the inner city, in the core area of Nashville? We will be very proud of that. And so I'm asking you to keep the money in the fund to have the police headquarters. The police headquarters, just think about it, because the police headquarters is falling apart as well as the jail. You've all seen pictures of it. You don't need to be reminded of it. And I really don't think we had that long to leave it there in that place. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I will be brief. I rise in support of Council Lady Erica Gilmore. And I will tell my own story. A week or so ago, I went to the NAACP General Membership meeting. And I sat and I listened to people talk about how they had trust issues with government and police because of what's gone on in their lifetime. I went across the street, sat in the NAACP headquarters itself with a group, Justice for Jefferson, where they talked about trusting their elected official to do what they said they're going to do. Then a letter comes out appeasing them from the mayor's office, suggesting we're going to have meetings, just go ahead and trust us. But they weren't involved in the process. They weren't shown the decent respect to be involved in the discussion of what's done in their community. I find that wrong. I know that there's challenges with pulling the funding. I think it should be funded at some point when it's properly vetted and involve the community, and I respectfully request you support Councilor Lady Gilmore in approving this amendment to pull this and allow it to be properly vetted, involving the community, and we assure that that happens when we have control of it. Thank you.
Councilmember Dow.
Thank you. I also rise in support of Council Lady Gilmore. I think if we look across this council over the last 4 years, and for some of you, 8 years, I think we all would agree that two of the most thorough council members we have are Council Lady Berkeley Allen. She does her homework, and Council Lady Erica Gilmore. And I don't think any of us should question whether or not she has interest in economic development on Jefferson Street. Because just a few months ago, or I guess 6 or so months ago, I saw her fight very hard to get the Nashville Sound Stadium put over there in the Germantown, Jefferson area when it was cited, according to statistics and all these reports, to go somewhere else. I don't necessarily think that having a police headquarters is a bad thing. Sure, we all want it. I have a place for it right now in my district. But I do think that it is irresponsible, once again, of us to force and funding and go forward with this to put a headquarters in on Jefferson Street when the community has an issue with it. I think I've been, over the last few weeks, several phone calls, even from some people that I'm very close to who have signed this letter, have expressed interest in development on Jefferson. There are many ways that we can create economic development on Jefferson aside of putting a police headquarters there if the community feel that sensitive about police being around in the area. Obviously, there's some sensitivity issues with regard to policing in the area that needs to be discussed with the community. We have a wonderful chief of police, and we have a wonderful mayor. Mayor Dean have invested in all of our areas. And I think with regard to the decision to fund a jail on Jefferson, it was in good faith to put one there to help stir economic development, just like as he's done out in my district. But obviously the community has concerns with it. Once again, I think if we take a step back and allow the community to have the opportunity to discuss those concerns that they have with getting a beautiful headquarters put on Jefferson, then they may come to some kind of consensus to support it. Many of us may be back for the next term. We know that it's needed, and there's an opportunity to put it in the budget there. I'm sure all the potential candidates running for mayor would support it. I'm sure the new council people coming in would support it. I see no reason why we should put money in the budget for this when we're going to go back and have community conversations and all of that. I ask that you support Council Lady Gilmore, and let's just move this to the next a few months from now and bring it up again then. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Am I the last one? Previous question.
We have a motion for previous question and a second. All in favor of previous question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We will have a machine vote. If you want to remove the potential funding for the new police headquarters, vote yes on this amendment. If you want to keep the funding in, vote no on this amendment. Or abstain, but if you're in the room, please vote. Madam Clerk?
Yep. Ready?
Please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 22 for, 14 against, 2 abstentions.
The amendment passes. We will now move on to Amendment 5, which basically removes funding for the... When you are leaving the chamber, please leave quietly. We still have a meeting going on. We delete funding for the new community center at Smith Springs, the Una Recreational Park, the Cane Ridge Elementary School, the Head Start facility, and the master plan for Metro Parks. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do I need committee reports?
Yes, you do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Pridemore.
On Amendment 5, Budget and Finance Committee voted for the agreed withdrawal, 13 for, 0 against withdrawal.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
What amendment?
Amendment 5.
Amendment 5, thank you. Amendment 5 was voted to withdraw, 7 for, 3 against to withdraw.
Thank you. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I do move to withdraw with just a brief explanation.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. When I put this in, I did it because it's very difficult to have discussion about anything in the budget without an amendment, especially when we get into the CIB. So I placed it in there, not out of malice, not out of bully, as I was accused of, and I apologize, each of you had to read the emails that came out. But that's what happened. What I regret that I've seen tonight, though, is a lot of the same thing I was accused of. And I think that's unfortunate, and I hope that as we continue the process that we stop that. So once again with that, Vice Mayor, I move to withdraw.
Okay, we don't need a vote on this. We're just removing this from the agenda. Number 6, we do not need to consider. Number 7 is an amendment to add funding for the complete renovation of the downtown jail facilities at the Criminal Justice Center. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Once again, I'd ask for committee reports, please.
Councilmember Pridemore.
Budget and Finance voted approval, 11 for, 0 against, and 2 no voted.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Planning and Zoning voted for Amendment 7, 8 for, 0 against, 2 abstentions.
Thank you. Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's my understanding, Mr. Cooper, that what the actions we've taken tonight now have removed any dollars for any renovation should the jail stay where it is, correct? And this is what that would fund.
Correct.
Okay. So with that, Vice Mayor, I mean, the sheriff has expressed that something has to be done. And so with that, I would ask that we move the money back into the CIB, and then any continued discussion that may be had is fine, but something's going to have to be done, and hopefully this amendment will serve that purpose. So I renew my motion.
Thank you. Councilman Holloman.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I rise in support of Councilman Glover's amendment, and I just want to make a couple of comments. In 2007, as the Purcell administration closed out and many of us arrived here in this chamber, you may remember that there was funding placed in the budget for the renovation of the Lentz Public Health Center. Now, ultimately, those funds were not spent to renovate Lentz. They were spent to do a land swap with HCA and relocate the Lentz Health Center on Charlotte Avenue. But part of that discussion was that we had a placeholder there in the budget to say that this is a capital need. This is a project that we need to do. And like many of you over the last week, we've spent a lot of time looking at this issue, considering it, speaking with the sheriff. And I want to say that I asked the sheriff because part of the constituency that I hear from are the social justice folks, the people that care about what goes on inside of the jail and what it's like for the incarcerated. And at my request, Sheriff Hall spent 2 hours with 2 ordained ministers that work inside our jails. And at the end of that conversation, one of the pieces that we all agreed on is that the conditions that we have now, the facilities that we currently house inmates in, are not adequate, and that we need something done. So with that, I hope that since we voted tonight to take out this money to relocate the CJC, that we will at least recognize that the facilities we have are not adequate and that something needs to be done. And so with that, I ask you to please support this amendment to add the funds back in. Ultimately, we may make another decision. We may come back as a new council and decide, as Councilman Garrett said, that if this is a good idea, that it'll merit being a good idea down the road after community meetings we've had, after we've worked out some of these issues. But in the meantime, I think we need to make a policy statement that this is a project that in some shape or form or fashion needs to be done. Thank you.
Councilmember Bedney.
Yeah, I still feel that we are not being heard. We are not saying that we want the downtown jail to stay there forever. We just want to be part of the process. So I'm going to support this, but I don't want necessarily for us to spend a lot of money in remodeling the downtown jail. I just want us to have a transparent, inclusive process that helps Nashville decide what is the best way to deal with this. On a side note, I got some letters from people that work for the sheriff that told me that they don't get any parking downtown. And I was offended by it. I don't think that we should have city employees having to go to work and paying for their own parking. So I'd like to see if we can include something to that effect on the renovation of the jail, or create some way for these employees that work for Metro, just like anybody else that works downtown, not to have to pay for their own parking. Already they make very little money. Thank you.
Councilmember Hager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I guess my question is, of course, I probably go in the CJC at least once or twice a week. And I guess my question is and I guess it'd be to John, if we go ahead and pull this amendment in for those renovations, is that something that we could, once we have some community meetings about moving the jail, because those funds be moved in regards to that?
No, not without amending the capital improvements budget.
All right, so it'd have to go back and be completely amended. Okay, that's my question. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Matthews.
Previous question.
We have a motion and a second on previous question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We're having a machine vote. All in favor of adding the funding for the jail renovations, vote yes. If you oppose the funding, vote no. If you are in the room, please vote yes, no, or abstain. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the vote.
I have 36 for, none against, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. We're now on the less controversial amendments to the capital improvements budget. And without objection, we will take 8 through 25 together. I will read the caption. Amendment 8 amends, it deletes the projects for the Nashville State Community College, Donaldson area and Madison area. It's separate. Adds them back in as separate projects. Amendment 9 concerns sidewalks on Ewing Drive and Knight Road to Dickerson Road. Amendment 10 concerns sidewalks in District 17. Amendment 11 concerns crosswalks in District 17. The next amendment concerns parcel parking, street parallel street parking signage in the Antique Merchants area of 8th Avenue in Douglas, South Douglas. Next one is the street repaving of the Merle School and Wade Avenue near Midtown Police Precinct. Next is the sidewalk replacement on Marlborough Avenue between Fairfax and Chesterfield. Next one is the construction of a new fire hall in District 22. Next one is the construction of the Bellevue Community Center. Next is the streetscape project along Smith Springs Road from Bell Road to Anderson Road. Improvements include sidewalks, new decorative street lights, and native landscaping. Next one is streetscape projects for Southeast Nashville Murfreesboro Road Business District. The next one is land acquisition to construct a new police precinct in the Southeast Davidson County area. The next one is property acquisition for the Metro government at 2804 Smith Springs. Next one is sidewalks on Smith Springs Road from Anderson Road to Castlegate. Next one is traffic signalization at the intersection of Couchfield Pike and Bell Road. Next one is sidewalks on the Brookview Estates Drive. Next is sidewalks on Eulala Drive, Ocala Drive. Next is sidewalks and turn lanes on Blue Hole Road and West Highland Drive to Maxwell School entrance. Next one is park development from the Indian Creek neighborhood and the existing greenway in the Mill Creek Park. And
we do have a late one that we need to suspend the rules that Councilman Davis offered that is on.
okay, shall we go ahead and consider these first? Is there a motion for approval of the amendments 8 through 25? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. And I'm assuming we still have a quorum. Next, Councilmember Scott Davis, you have a late filed amendment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like a motion to suspend the rules, consider my late file amendment.
Is there any objection? We have 2 objections.
Can I explain can I redo the nature of the emergency for the signage?
What's next? Going back to.
The bill as amended.
We're now going back to BL 2015-1142 as amended. Councilmember Pridemore. Oh, 1 second. I need for Mr. Cooper to offer some guidance before we vote on this.
I would point out that the charter requires the council to adopt the capital improvements budget. So even though there may be projects in there, well, actually all of them that were controversial are out, but the council does need to vote on this tonight to meet our charter requirements, and it requires 21 votes.
Otherwise, we'll have
3 consecutive meetings.
Okay. Councilmember Pridemore.
Definitely don't want that. I move for 1142 to be passed to approval as amended.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now back to RS 2015-1500, issues general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $520 million. Councilmember Pridemore.
Budget and Finance Committee voted 13 for, 0 against approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.